Navigation with rough seas, how to handle it. Nautical tips in a nutshell. Follow us. The position on board, which is not just a condition for rough seas. I still take my Monte Carlo. It's not just a matter of rough seas, but let's see rough seas, certainly in rough sea conditions, whether you have a boat like this one or even a 5-meter boat. Look at the idea, the concept and the proportion. So rough seas here in front at risk of jumping out and falling into the sea or not. So everyone stays in the cockpit. The best position is to distribute oneself correctly on the boat. If there are rough seas also, if possible, lean, not sitting and slouching, but leaning maybe with a bit of support or a seat, but fundamentally not slouching, so that the spine, every time there is a jolt, it hits and you get hurt. But try to cushion with your legs. So I'm not necessarily telling you to stand, but certainly if you also use your legs to cushion the blows you take at sea, you will definitely avoid hurting your spine. And I guarantee you it hurts. So position yourself, better standing or at least leaning. But the use of the legs is fundamental, a strong anchoring point, and people distributed on the boat, never outside or at risk of falling into the sea. Techniques for facing the sea. So, with your boat, you are the captain, you are sailing. The general rule says 45 degrees relative to the waves. Let's assume the wave is coming at me this way, so I am now sailing in that direction. I avoid going at 90 degrees, so making two 90-degree angles here and here, thus perpendicular. But I will always try to face it at 45 degrees. So if I'm like this, if I'm here, considering that the wave is always coming from this side, I change the perspective. So we have the wave just as if you were the wave watching the video. If the boat goes straight like this, it hits it directly. Instead, what do? I go from here in this direction rather than the wave going from here at 45 degrees in that direction. This is to avoid the fact of completely jumping over the wave and creating really unpleasant situations while sailing. The risk of plunging, of getting the boat stuck into the waves. Sometimes I've seen wrong maneuvers, done perhaps out of a bit of fear. I don't know. I don't go with the engine, I don't push, because who knows what might happen. So if I have a wave this high and I want to get safely to the other side of the wave, I can't think of decelerating. The boat lowers. And what happens? It buries its bow, entering the wave with the bow. Whereas if I were to give more acceleration, thus giving more engine power, what happens? The boat tends to go bow up. The impact here is true that it might be less comfortable compared to being at home in a restaurant. However, having said this, I have a safe impact because at this point, on the bow shoulders, the boat is ultra strong, very safe. As a result, maybe there will be a bit of bouncing on the boat, but wow, isn't that the case for all of them? The people on the boat and the boat itself are above the water, not inside the wave. So be careful of bearing the bow when you need to accelerate. If you see that you can't maintain a plane because the waves are very formed, and it is very dangerous. When you see that you have a particularly large wave ahead, give it some throttle so that the boat can face it this way, not this way. What to do in case the engine breaks down while navigating in rough seas. So the first thing, obviously, is to report your problem to the authorities, that you are at that location with that type of problem, with the engine not working. What is it? Ask for help, who helps you. Then they will issue an alert to all the vessels around. I hope you have a VHF in this case, because if you are in rough seas, it means you are navigating and you are an experienced captain. If you find yourself in sea conditions really rough, and you have a small boat and don't have a nautical license, you've made a big mistake. in the sense that you've really taken a big risk, but regardless of this, I hope you at least have a VHF. On board, at least a phone with reception. That said, call for help first thing. Second thing to do, if you are an expert and you enjoy sailing, you sail often, make sure to get, or I hope you always have on board, a sea anchor. The sea anchor will allow you to keep the boat's bow facing the wind. It's not guaranteed that the wind and the waves come from the same direction, but generally they do. The sea anchor placed at the bow obviously ensures that the boat stays bow against the wind and also bow against the waves. This allows the hull to work at maximum safety. Because the real risk for boats when they are at sea with rough seas is when you encounter a wave and automatically the boat, since it gets hit from one side then the other until it straightens and becomes parallel to the wave. It's a physical issue. It happens if there's no type of sea anchor, a real type proper anchor. In this case, the boat becomes dangerous because why isn't the boat made to tilt impossibly? And if a wave here is particularly high, this happens. Let's avoid it. With a sea anchor, I will continue to do this even with the engine off. In conclusion, I hope you never encounter this situation, but if it does happen, those 3-4 things I mentioned could be useful to you. I hope I have given you some additional information. If you don't want to miss any of our videos, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel. And there's nothing left for me to say but fair winds and always keep an eye on the weather.